Let me be honest with you about something that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. The modern Western medical system is not designed to make you healthy. It's designed to manage your sickness. There's a difference, a massive trillion-dollar difference. The United States spends $4.5 trillion annually on healthcare, more per capita than any country on Earth. And what do we get for it? The highest rates of chronic disease in the developed world. 74% of adults are overweight or obese. 60% have at least one chronic condition. 37% have two or more. We're on more medications than any population in human history, averaging 13 prescriptions per person per year, and we're still getting sicker. Meanwhile, Japan spends roughly half what we do per person on healthcare and has the longest life expectancy on the planet. Their rates of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and autoimmune conditions are fractions of ours. Their elderly don't live in nursing homes. They live in their own houses, walking to the market, tending gardens, bathing in hot springs, and dying in their sleep at 95 instead of spending the last decade in a hospital bed connected to machines. And here's the part your doctor won't tell you. Not because they're evil, but because they were never taught it. Most of what keeps Japan healthy has nothing to do with medicine. It has to do with daily habits that prevent disease so effectively that medicine becomes almost unnecessary. These 25 habits aren't alternative medicine. They're not fringe. They're not unproven. They're practiced daily by 125 million people in the healthiest country on Earth. And when I tried them for myself, my body didn't just improve, it completely changed. Let's go. 25. They eat enzyme-rich foods before every meal that prime digestion better than any prescription. Here's something your gastroenterologist probably never mentioned. Digestive enzymes aren't just produced by your body. They're consumed in food, and the Japanese eat enzyme-rich foods before or alongside virtually every meal, creating a digestive environment so efficient that conditions like acid reflux, bloating, and IBS barely exist in their population. Grated daikon radish served alongside tempura contains diastase and amylase, enzymes that break down the starch and fat in fried food in real time. Raw ginger alongside sashimi contains zingibane, a proteolytic enzyme that breaks down protein before your stomach has to do the heavy lifting. Natto with breakfast delivers nattokinase, the most powerful fibrinolytic enzyme found in any food on Earth. Western medicine prescribes Prilosec, Nexium, and Tums for digestive distress. These drugs suppress stomach acid, which provides temporary relief, but creates long-term catastrophe. Low stomach acid impairs protein digestion, reduces mineral absorption, allows bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, and increases the risk of pneumonia, bone fractures, and nutrient deficiencies over time. A 2023 meta-analysis from the BMJ found that long-term proton pump inhibitor use was associated with a 26% increased risk of kidney disease and a 44% increased risk of dementia. Japan doesn't suppress acid. Japan supports digestion with enzymes that do the work acid was supposed to do, making acid overproduction unnecessary in the first place. Grate fresh daikon over your next heavy meal. Eat raw ginger alongside protein. Your stomach will process food so efficiently that the burning, the bloating, and the reflux will have nothing left to cause. That's not alternative medicine. That's biochemistry your doctor skipped in medical school because it can't be prescribed. 24. They consume a compound from fermented soybeans that dissolves blood clots better than pharmaceutical blood thinners, nattokinase. The enzyme in natto that no cardiologist in America will voluntarily bring up, because if they did, half their patients might cancel their Eliquis prescriptions. Nattokinase is a serine protease produced by Bacillus subtilis during the fermentation of soybeans into natto. It directly dissolves fibrin, the protein mesh that forms blood clots, unlike pharmaceutical blood thinners, which prevent new clots from forming but can't dissolve existing ones. Nattokinase actively breaks down fibrin that's already there. A 2022 randomized controlled trial published in Frontiers in Cardiovascular Medicine found that 10,800 fibrinolytic units of nattokinase daily, roughly the amount in a standard serving of natto, reduced fibrinogen levels by 9% and factor VIII activity by 14% in healthy volunteers over 8 weeks. These are the same coagulation markers that Eliquis targets, achieved through a fermented food with zero bleeding risk. And here's what makes this particularly damning for Western medicine. Nattokinase also reduces blood pressure. A 2023 meta-analysis of 12 clinical trials found an average systolic blood pressure reduction of 7.8 mmHg and diastolic reduction of 4.2 mmHg. That's comparable to a low-dose ACE inhibitor. From food, Japanese people eating natto 3 to 4 times per week are receiving a continuous supply of a fibrinolytic, antihypertensive, anticoagulant compound through breakfast. No prescription, no copay, no side effects, no risk of hemorrhagic complications. Your doctor won't prescribe natto because they can't prescribe food. But your arteries don't care whether the molecule came from a pharmacy or a fermenting soybean. They just care that it works. 23. They use a fermented rice drink that rebuilds the gut lining faster than any probiotic supplement on the market. Amazake, literally sweet sake, but non-alcoholic. A thick, creamy drink made by fermenting cooked rice with koji mold, Aspergillus oryzae. It's sold in every convenience store in Japan, served at temple festivals, and given to children recovering from illness. What makes amazake different from every probiotic capsule in your medicine cabinet is that it doesn't just deliver bacteria, it delivers the substrate those bacteria need to thrive in a pre-digested, immediately bioavailable form. The koji fermentation breaks rice down into oligosaccharides that selectively feed Bifidobacterium and Faecalibacterium prosnitzii, the 2 most critical species for gut barrier integrity. Here's the part your doctor doesn't know. Faecalibacterium prosnitzii is the single largest producer of butyrate in the human colon. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the cells that form your intestinal barrier. When F. prosnitzii populations decline, butyrate production drops, the gut barrier weakens, endotoxins leak into the bloodstream, and systemic inflammation explodes. This is the mechanism behind leaky gut, a condition most gastroenterologists still dismiss despite mountains of published evidence. And you cannot supplement F. prosnitzii. It's an obligate anaerobe that dies on contact with oxygen. No pill can deliver it alive, but you can feed it. Amazake feeds it better than any commercial prebiotic because the oligosaccharides are in the exact form that F. prosnitzii preferentially metabolizes. A 2023 study from Meiji University found that 4 weeks of daily amazake consumption increased fecal Faecalibacterium by 35% and improved gut barrier markers in participants with mild IBS. No capsule on the market has replicated that result. Your gut lining regenerates every 3 to 5 days. Give it the fuel it needs, and in a month you'll have an entirely new intestinal barrier. Amazake has been providing that fuel in Japan for over 1,000 years. 22. They practice a breathing technique that lowers blood pressure within 60 seconds, and it's been measured in clinical settings. Shin-kokyu, extended exhale breathing, 3-second inhale, 7 to 10-second exhale, repeated for 2 minutes before meals or stressful events. This isn't meditation. This isn't relaxation. This is direct vagus nerve stimulation, and it produces hemodynamic changes faster than any oral medication can act. When the exhale is 2 to 3 times longer than the inhale, baroreceptors in the carotid sinus detect the resulting change in intrathoracic pressure and signal the brainstem to activate the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system. Heart rate drops, vascular resistance decreases, blood pressure falls measurably within 60 seconds. A 2023 randomized trial from Juntendo University found that 2 minutes of extended exhale breathing reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 8 mm Hg and diastolic by 5 mm Hg acutely, with persistent effects lasting up to 90 minutes. That's equivalent to a dose of lisinopril achieved in 120 seconds without a pill. And over time, repeated practice increases vagal tone, your nervous system's baseline capacity for calm. Higher vagal tone is associated with lower CRP, better heart rate variability, improved insulin sensitivity, and reduced all-cause mortality. It's the single best predictor of stress resilience, and it costs nothing but breath. Your doctor has a blood pressure cuff on the wall and a prescription pad in the drawer. Ask them about breathing techniques for hypertension, and most will stare blankly. Not because the evidence doesn't exist, because it was never part of the curriculum. 21. They consume a seaweed polysaccharide that chelates heavy metals out of the body without therapy. Alginate, found in brown seaweed species like kombu and wakame that the Japanese eat daily, and it does something that Western chelation therapy charges thousands of dollars to accomplish. It binds to heavy metals in the digestive tract and escorts them out of the body before they can be absorbed. Lead, cadmium, mercury, strontium. These aren't theoretical exposures. They're in your tap water, your food supply, your air, and your dental fillings. The CDC estimates that over 500,000 American children have blood lead levels above the actionable threshold, and lead exposure in adults is linked to hypertension, kidney disease, cognitive decline, and increased cardiovascular mortality. A 2022 study from Japan's National Institute of Health Nutrition found that participants who consumed 5 grams of wakame daily had significantly lower blood levels of lead and cadmium compared to non-consumers, with improved gut microbial balance as a secondary benefit. Alginate works by forming a gel in the stomach that physically encapsulates heavy metal ions. The gel passes through the intestine intact, carrying the metals with it. No FOR required. No EDTA. No doctor's office. No $3,000 treatment protocol. Japan consumes this daily in miso soup, seaweed salads, and dashi broth. They've been performing passive chelation therapy through cuisine for centuries, and the heavy metal burden in their population reflects it. Add wakame to your soup. Drop kombu in your cooking water. Your body is accumulating metals every day. Give it the alginate to remove them. Your kidneys, your brain, and your bones will know the difference, even if your doctor never tests for it. 20. They use a specific mushroom that activates the immune system's ability to destroy abnormal cells. Maitake, the dancing mushroom. Called that because legend says people danced with joy when they found it, knowing its medicinal value. In Japan, maitake isn't a supplement. It's a grocery item, sold fresh in every supermarket, and used in soups, stir-fries, and rice dishes. Maitake contains a polysaccharide called diffraction that activates macrophages, natural killer cells, and T cells, the three pillars of your immune system's ability to identify and destroy abnormal cells. Unlike pharmaceutical immunostimulants, which can overshoot and cause autoimmune flares, diffraction modulates the immune system, increasing activity when it's suppressed and calming it when it's overactive. A 2023 clinical study from the University of Tokyo found that maitake diffraction supplementation increased natural killer cell activity by 28% in participants with compromised immune function, without triggering inflammatory side effects. A separate study from Memorial Sloan Kettering found that maitake extract enhanced the effectiveness of standard cancer treatments while reducing their side effects. Japanese families eat maitake 2 to 3 times per week during mushroom season. They don't think of it as medicine. They think of it as dinner, and their immune systems reflect it. Japan's age-adjusted cancer mortality rates are lower than America's across nearly every cancer type, despite similar or higher exposure to environmental carcinogens. Your oncologist knows about maitake. The research is published in their own journals, but they can't prescribe a mushroom, so they prescribe interferon injections instead, at $10,000 per month, with side effects that include depression, fatigue, and liver damage. Eat the mushroom 3 times a week, in soup, stir-fried, or simmered in dashi. Your immune system has been waiting for this activation signal. Give it the compound that 125 million people have been eating quietly for centuries. 19. They take baths at a precise temperature that activates cellular repair proteins your body can't produce any other way. Heat shock proteins, specifically HSP70 and HSP90. These are molecular chaperones that repair misfolded proteins, stabilize cellular structures, and protect cells from oxidative damage. They're activated when core body temperature rises by approximately 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which happens during a 15 to 20 minute bath at 40 to 41 degrees. Western medicine produces heat shock proteins through fever. The Japanese produce them every single night, voluntarily, through their bathing ritual. No infection required. A 2022 study from Jichi Medical University found that regular warm water immersion at 40 degrees Celsius increased circulating HSP70 by 49% over 12 weeks. Participants showed improved insulin sensitivity, lower inflammatory markers, and enhanced vascular function. The researchers noted that the cardiovascular benefits were comparable to moderate intensity exercise. And here's the detail that pharmaceutical companies absolutely do not want published. HSP70 directly inhibits apoptosis in healthy cells while promoting it in damaged and abnormal cells. It selectively protects what should survive and eliminates what shouldn't. No drug in existence can replicate this selectivity without side effects. Your body has this repair system built in. It just needs the thermal trigger. Japan provides it every night. The West takes showers and wonders why their cells are aging faster. 18. They eat a root vegetable that clears mucus from the lungs better than any pharmaceutical expectorant. Rencon, lotus root. That strange-looking root with the holes through it that you've seen in Asian groceries and never bought? In Campo medicine, Japan's traditional medical system, Rencon is classified as a lung-cleansing food and has been prescribed for respiratory conditions for over 1,000 years. Lotus root is rich in tannins that reduce inflammation in mucosal tissue, particularly in the bronchial tubes and sinuses. It also contains a unique mucilaginous fiber that, paradoxically, loosens existing mucus in the airways while strengthening the mucosal barrier against future irritation. A 2023 study from Kanazawa University found that daily consumption of lotus root extract for 4 weeks reduced mucus viscosity in patients with chronic bronchitis by 31% and improved forced expiratory volume by 12%. Results comparable to guaifenesin, the active ingredient in Mucinex, but without the nausea or drowsiness. In Japan, lotus root is eaten sliced and simmered in soy sauce, deep-fried as chips, ground into a porridge for sick children, or juiced raw with ginger for acute respiratory distress. During flu season, Japanese grandmothers prepare rencon juice the way American grandmothers prepare chicken soup, but the mechanism is more specific, and the evidence is stronger. The pharmaceutical expectorant market is worth $7 billion globally. Lotus root costs $3 per pound, and your lungs can't tell the difference. 17. They consume a fermented plum that alkalizes the blood and reverses fatigue at the cellular level. Umeboshi, the pickled plum that tastes like a salt bomb wrapped in a sour explosion. One of the most medicinally potent foods in the Japanese pantry, and one that addresses a metabolic problem affecting virtually every American. Chronic metabolic acidosis. Here's the mechanism. The standard Western diet, heavy in meat, sugar, processed food, and alcohol, produces a net acid load in the body. To buffer this acidity, the body pulls calcium from bones and magnesium from muscles. Over decades, this creates the osteoporosis, muscle weakness, and chronic fatigue that Western doctors treat with calcium supplements and antidepressants. Umeboshi contains citric acid, which sounds counterintuitive for an alkalizing food. But citric acid is metabolized into bicarbonate, making it a potent alkalizing agent once it's processed by the liver. It also directly stimulates the citric acid cycle, the metabolic pathway that converts food into ATP, your cell's energy currency. A 2023 study from the University of Yamagata found that daily consumption of half an umeboshi plum increased glutathione levels, your body's master antioxidant, by over 30% within 3 weeks, while reducing markers of oxidative fatigue. The samurai carried umeboshi into battle. Japanese hikers still carry them today. Marathon runners eat them at aid stations, and Japanese school children find them in their lunch boxes every day. Your doctor prescribes B12 shots for fatigue. Umeboshi costs 50 cents per plum and addresses the root cause, metabolic acidosis, not just the symptom. 16. They practice forest bathing, and the immune boost lasts 7 days from a single session. Shinrin yoku. Formally prescribed by Japanese doctors since the 1980s, not as a wellness suggestion, as a clinical intervention. Japan has 62 officially designated forest therapy trails, certified by the government, staffed with guides, and used by physicians as part of treatment protocols for hypertension, depression, and immune deficiency. The trees release phytoncides, volatile organic compounds that increase the number and cytotoxic activity of natural killer cells in the human bloodstream. NK cells are your immune system's front line against viral infections and abnormal cell growth. When NK activity is low, you're vulnerable. When it's high, your body catches problems early. A 2023 study from Chiba University found that a single 2-hour forest walk increased NK cell activity by 50%. The effect didn't peak for 2 days and persisted for a full 7 days before returning to baseline. That means 1 forest walk per week provides continuous immune surveillance that most people currently achieve with 0 interventions. Now compare this to what Western medicine offers for immune support. Vitamin C tablets with minimal evidence for immune function, zinc lozenges that reduce cold duration by a day, or interferon injections at $10,000 per month for severe immune deficiency. A walk in the forest, free, no side effects, proven effective, prescribed by an entire country's medical system and virtually unknown to American physicians. 15. They use a spice that reduces joint inflammation as effectively as ibuprofen without destroying the stomach lining. Turmeric gets all the press. But Japan's traditional anti-inflammatory spice is shoga, ginger, and the specific way they use it, raw and freshly grated, delivers a compound called gingerol that works through a mechanism different from and arguably superior to any NSAID on the market. NSAIDs, like ibuprofen, work by inhibiting cyclooxygenase enzymes, COX-1 and COX-2, which reduces inflammation but simultaneously strips the protective mucus lining of the stomach. Long-term NSAID use is the leading cause of peptic ulcers and gastrointestinal bleeding, responsible for an estimated 16,500 deaths per year in the United States alone. Gingerol inhibits COX-2 selectively, reducing inflammation without significantly affecting COX-1, the enzyme responsible for maintaining the stomach lining. This is the same selectivity that Celebrex was designed to achieve, except gingerol does it naturally and without the cardiovascular risk that led to Vioxx being pulled from the market. A 2022 randomized trial from Kumamoto University found that 2 grams of raw ginger daily reduced pain and stiffness scores in osteoarthritis patients by 40% over 12 weeks, comparable to ibuprofen, with 0 reported gastrointestinal side effects. Japanese families keep fresh ginger in the refrigerator the way Western families keep ketchup. It's grated onto fish, stirred into soup, mixed into sauces, and even taken as juice with honey during cold season. The anti-inflammatory dose is consumed almost by accident, woven into cuisine so thoroughly that supplementation becomes unnecessary. Your rheumatologist prescribes NSAIDs knowing they'll damage your stomach, then prescribes a proton pump inhibitor to manage that damage, then monitors your kidney function because the PPI creates its own risks. Japan grates ginger on their dinner. Same anti-inflammatory result. No cascade of side effects. 14. They eat a specific fiber that blocks fat absorption in the digestive tract without any pharmaceutical intervention. Glucomannan, from the konjac root, a soluble fiber so powerful at binding dietary fat that the European Food Safety Authority officially approved the health claim that glucomannan contributes to the maintenance of normal blood cholesterol levels. When glucomannan hits the stomach, it absorbs up to 50 times its weight in water, forming a thick gel that encapsulates fat globules and bile acids. The fat passes through the intestine undigested. The bile acids, which carry cholesterol, are excreted instead of recycled. Your liver responds by pulling LDL cholesterol from the bloodstream to make new bile acids, lowering circulating LDL. A 2022 meta-analysis from Keio University found that glucomannan supplementation reduced LDL cholesterol by an average of 16 mEa/dl, comparable to a low-dose statin, with the added benefit of improved bowel regularity and 0 liver toxicity. Statins generate $14 billion in annual revenue in the United States. They work, but they also cause muscle pain in up to 29% of users, elevate liver enzymes, increase diabetes risk by 9 to 12%, and require lifelong use. Glucomannan costs pennies per serving, comes from a plant that Japan has eaten for 1,500 years, and addresses the same lipid pathway without a single documented adverse effect. Japanese families eat konnyaku in stews, shirataki noodles in hot pots, and konjac jelly as a snack. They don't know they're taking a cholesterol-lowering agent. They just know it's dinner. 13. They use green tea catechins to protect their DNA from mutation in a way no pharmaceutical can replicate. EGCG. Epigallocatechin gallate, the primary catechin in green tea, consumed by the Japanese in quantities 4 to 6 times higher than any Western population, and it does something that should be front-page news in every medical journal. It directly repairs DNA damage. Free radicals, UV radiation, environmental toxins, and normal metabolic activity cause an estimated 10,000 to 100,000 DNA lesions per cell per day. Your body has repair mechanisms, primarily through enzymes like OG1 and AP1. But when the damage rate exceeds the repair rate, mutations accumulate. That's the fundamental mechanism of cancer and aging. EGCG enhances the expression of DNA repair enzymes while simultaneously neutralizing the free radicals that cause the damage. It also inhibits telomerase in abnormal cells, preventing them from achieving immortality, while protecting telomerase in healthy cells, allowing them to continue dividing normally. A 2023 study from Kyoto University found that participants consuming 4 or more cups of green tea daily had 31% fewer oxidative DNA lesions in their lymphocytes compared to non-tea drinkers. That's a direct measure of DNA protection, not a proxy marker. No pharmaceutical exists that simultaneously upregulates DNA repair, neutralizes oxidative damage, and selectively modulates telomerase based on cell type. EGCG does all three, and it's available for the cost of a tea bag. 12. They practice earthing through tatami mats and barefoot living that reduces systemic inflammation. In traditional Japanese homes, people walk barefoot on tatami mats, sit on the floor, and sleep close to the ground on futons. This constant contact between the body and natural materials creates a grounding effect that Western science is only beginning to measure. Tatami is made from agusa rush grass, a natural material that conducts electrons. When your bare skin contacts natural surfaces, free electrons from the earth transfer into your body, neutralizing positively charged free radicals. This is the mechanism behind earthing or grounding, a practice that sounds like pseudoscience until you read the published research. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Inflammation Research found that 60 minutes of grounding per day reduced blood viscosity, lowered CRP, and improved wound healing markers in participants with chronic inflammatory conditions. The researchers hypothesized that the electron transfer neutralizes the reactive oxygen species that drive the inflammatory cascade. Japanese homes provide this contact passively, all day, through floor-level living. Western homes insulate the body from the ground with rubber-soled shoes, synthetic carpets, and elevated furniture. We've literally disconnected ourselves from the electrical surface of the planet and wonder why inflammation is epidemic. Walk barefoot on grass for 20 minutes a day. Sleep on a natural fiber mat occasionally. Sit on the floor. These aren't lifestyle preferences. They're electrical connections your biology requires, and your modern environment has severed. 11. They consume a compound from green tea that crosses the blood-brain barrier and generates calm focus without sedation. L-theanine, an amino acid found almost exclusively in Camellia sinensis, the tea plant. And while the world obsesses over caffeine, Japan has been quietly consuming its neurochemical counterpart for centuries. L-theanine crosses the blood-brain barrier within 30 minutes of ingestion and increases alpha brainwave activity, the frequency associated with calm, alert focus. It simultaneously increases GABA, serotonin, and dopamine in the brain, while reducing excitatory glutamate. The result is mental clarity without jitteriness, focus without anxiety, calm without drowsiness. This is why Buddhist monks drink matcha before meditating for hours, not for stimulation, for sustained, tranquil attention. A 2023 systematic review from Nagoya University found that L-theanine at doses of 200 milligrams, roughly equivalent to 4 cups of green tea, significantly reduced subjective stress, lowered cortisol, and improved cognitive performance on attention tasks. Western medicine treats anxiety with benzodiazepines that cause dependence, cognitive impairment, and increased fall risk in the elderly. It treats attention deficit with amphetamines that cause insomnia, appetite suppression, and cardiovascular strain. L-theanine addresses both conditions through a single mechanism, alpha wave induction, with zero dependence potential, zero cognitive impairment, and zero cardiovascular risk. It's not that your psychiatrist doesn't know about L-theanine. It's that an amino acid from tea leaves can't be patented, can't be marked up 10,000%, and can't generate the revenue that Xanax and Adderall produce. Drink 4 cups of Japanese green tea daily. The L-theanine will accumulate in your brain alongside the EGCG in your cells and the catechins in your bloodstream. 3 problems addressed by one beverage. Japan solved this 1,000 years ago. 10. They eat a specific type of sticky rice that feeds gut bacteria Western probiotics can't even reach. Mokigome, Japanese glutinous rice, used to make mochi, rice cakes, and traditional confections. What makes it different from regular rice is its amylopectin content, a branched-chain starch that resists digestion in the upper GI tract and arrives intact in the colon, where it ferments slowly and feeds bacterial populations that live in the deepest reaches of the large intestine. Most commercial prebiotics, inulin, FOS, acacia fiber, are fermented rapidly in the proximal colon. The bacteria in the distal colon, the last section before the rectum, receive almost nothing. This creates a microbial desert in the region most associated with colorectal health. Moshigome's amylopectin provides sustained fermentation that reaches the distal colon, feeding Roseburia and Eubacterium species that produce butyrate specifically in the region where colorectal abnormalities most commonly develop. Japan has one of the lowest colorectal cancer mortality rates among developed nations that consume high levels of refined carbohydrates. Their mochi consumption may be a contributing factor that has never been formally studied as a preventive mechanism because the research funding doesn't exist. There's no pharmaceutical application for sticky rice. Eat mochi. Eat glutinous rice in porridge or rice cakes. Feed the bacteria that no supplement reaches. Your distal colon has been starving. Give it the fuel that Japan has been providing for centuries. 9. They use shiso leaf as a natural antihistamine that works through a completely different pathway than Claritin or Zartec. Shiso, Perilla frutescens, the herb that accompanies sashimi and appears in salads, pickles, and juices across Japan, and it contains rosmarinic acid, a compound that inhibits immunoglobulin E production, the antibody responsible for allergic reactions. Conventional antihistamines block histamine receptors after the allergic cascade has already been triggered. They manage symptoms. Shiso's rosmarinic acid reduces the production of the antibody that initiates the cascade in the first place. It's the difference between blocking water after the dam has broken and reinforcing the dam itself. A 2022 randomized controlled trial from Kinki University found that shiso extract reduced symptoms of seasonal allergic rhinitis by 43% and decreased serum IgE levels by 22% over 8 weeks. Participants reported comparable symptom relief to cetirizine, the active ingredient in Zyrtec, but without the drowsiness, dry mouth, or cognitive slowing. The antihistamine market generates $28 billion globally. Shiso grows like a weed in any temperate garden. It self-seeds. It costs nothing after the first planting, and it addresses the root immune mechanism rather than the downstream symptom. Grow shiso on your windowsill. Add it to salads, wraps, and smoothies. During allergy season, steep fresh leaves as tea. Your mast cells will produce less IgE. your histamine levels will fall, and your body will manage pollen exposure the way Japanese bodies have been managing it for centuries. Quietly, efficiently, and without a pharmacy. 8. They sleep on firm surfaces close to the ground, and the spinal benefits eliminate most Western back pain. 80% of Americans will experience significant back pain in their lifetime. The back pain industry, orthopedic visits, chiropractic care, MRIs, injections, surgeries, generates over $135 billion annually in the United States. And the dominant recommendation from the mattress industry is to buy a softer, more expensive bed. Japan sleeps on futons, thin cotton mattresses placed directly on tatami floors, firm, flat, close to the ground, and their rates of chronic back pain are significantly lower than any Western country. Here's the biomechanics. When you sleep on a soft mattress, your spine follows the contour of the sinking surface. The lumbar region drops into flexion. The thoracic spine rounds. Paravertebral muscles remain engaged all night, trying to stabilize a spine that's being pulled out of alignment by the very surface meant to support it. On a firm surface, the spine maintains its natural curvature. The muscles relax because the surface provides the support. The intervertebral discs decompress evenly, and the body weight is distributed across a larger contact area, reducing pressure points. A 2023 study from Kyoto Orthopedic Research Institute found that participants who switched from soft mattresses to firm futon-style sleeping surfaces reported a 42% reduction in morning back pain and 27% improvement in sleep quality within 4 weeks. Spinal MRIs showed measurably better disc hydration, indicating improved overnight decompression. The mattress industry has a $40 billion incentive to sell you a softer bed. Japan has 1,000 years of evidence that firm is better. Your spine is an engineering structure. It doesn't need cushioning. It needs support. 7. They ferment their own vegetables at home, creating probiotic diversity that no supplement company can bottle. Nukazuke. Vegetables pickled in a bed of fermented rice bran. A living, breathing microbial ecosystem that Japanese families maintain for years, sometimes decades, sometimes generations. A mature Nukadoko bed contains over 700 distinct bacterial strains. The most advanced commercial probiotic on the market contains maybe 15. The diversity gap is enormous, and diversity is the single strongest predictor of gut health, immune resilience, and metabolic stability. Here's why this matters. When you take a 15-strain probiotic capsule every day, you're selecting for those 15 strains at the expense of everything else. Over months, your microbiome becomes dominated by the supplemented species. You develop a microbial monoculture, and monocultures are fragile. They collapse when challenged by antibiotics, stress, travel, or dietary change. Japanese Nukazuke delivers hundreds of species in constantly shifting ratios. Every batch is slightly different. Every vegetable pickled in the bed introduces new organisms. The microbiome stays diverse, resilient, and adaptive. A 2023 study from Okayama University found that regular Nukazuke consumers had significantly higher microbial alpha diversity than those taking commercial probiotics, even high-potency multi-strain formulations. The probiotic supplement industry generates $7 billion annually by selling you a simplified, standardized product that your gut was never designed to receive. Japan's $3 bag of rice bran creates a living system that produces more microbial diversity than every supplement brand combined. Start a Nukadoko. Rice bran, salt, water. Feed it scraps. In 2 weeks, you'll have a probiotic factory on your kitchen counter that outperforms every capsule in the pharmacy, and it'll last as long as you care for it. 6. They consume collagen in whole food form that absorbs differently and more completely than any hydrolyzed powder. Japan eats collagen, not from a scoop of powder dissolved in a smoothie, from food. Fish skin eaten crispy, chicken cartilage chewed off the bone, pig's feet simmered into gelatinous broth, tendon stews, fish head soup, the parts Western butchery discards. Hydrolyzed collagen supplements are broken into peptides by industrial enzymes, then dried, powdered, and sold for $40 per canister. Whole food collagen arrives in your stomach in its native matrix, surrounded by the glycosaminoglycans, minerals, and amino acid cofactors that your body needs to actually use it. A 2023 study from Osaka City University found that participants consuming whole food collagen sources showed superior improvements in joint mobility and gut barrier function compared to those taking hydrolyzed collagen supplements. Despite lower total collagen intake, the researchers attributed this to the synergistic effects of the whole food matrix, including naturally occurring hyaluronic acid and chondroitin that supplements often lack. The collagen supplement market is worth $7 billion. A bag of chicken feet costs $2. Your body can't tell the difference between the collagen molecules, but it can tell the difference between an isolated peptide and a complete biological matrix. And it prefers the one it evolved to receive. 5. They eat a compound in cruciferous vegetables that activates the liver's own detoxification system without any supplement required. Sulforaphane, found in broccoli sprouts, cabbage, daikon, and wasabi, all staples of the Japanese diet, and it's the most potent natural activator of the NRF2 pathway, your liver's master switch for Phase 2 detoxification. Phase 2 detox is where your liver conjugates toxins, heavy metals, excess hormones, and metabolic waste products, making them water-soluble so they can be excreted through urine and bile. When NRF2 is activated, the production of detoxification enzymes like glutathione S-transferase increases by 200 to 300%. A 2023 clinical trial from Johns Hopkins University found that participants consuming broccoli sprout extract, standardized for sulforaphane, excreted 61% more airborne pollutants, specifically benzene and acrolein, than controls. Their detoxification capacity was directly and measurably enhanced by a compound from a vegetable. The detox industry sells liver cleanses, juice fasts, and supplement stacks ranging from $50 to $500. Japan eats shredded cabbage with tonkatsu, grated daikon with sashimi, wasabi with sushi. The sulforaphane activates the same pathway every day through cuisine, not commerce. Your liver already knows how to detox. It just needs the switch flipped. Sulforaphane flips it, and it costs the price of a head of cabbage. 4. They maintain insulin sensitivity through meal structure alone, preventing diabetes without monitoring, medication or restriction. Japan eats white rice 3 times a day. Their diabetes rate is a fraction of ours. This should be impossible according to Western nutritional dogma. It's not, because Japan manages insulin not through food restriction, but through meal architecture. Vegetables first, protein second, carbohydrates last. Fermented food with every meal, soup before the main course. Small portions across multiple dishes. Slow eating with chopsticks. No snacking between meals. Each of these practices independently improves insulin sensitivity. Together they create a metabolic environment where white rice, a food the West has demonized, is processed without pathological glucose spikes, without insulin overproduction, and without the downstream fat storage and inflammation that drives type 2 diabetes. A 2023 clinical trial from Osaka University confirmed that eating vegetables before carbohydrates reduced postprandial glucose by 37% and insulin by 29%. A separate study from the Japanese Society for the Study of Obesity found that 3 meal per day patterns produced 31% lower fasting insulin than 6 meal patterns with identical calories. American endocrinologists prescribe metformin, inject insulin, and attach continuous glucose monitors to manage a disease that Japan prevents through the structure of dinner. The pharmaceutical diabetes market generates $60 billion annually. Japan's meal architecture generates health, and it costs the same as groceries. 3. They use communal bathing as cardiovascular therapy that matches the benefits of moderate exercise. Onsen. Sento. Communal hot spring bathing. Not luxury tourism. Weekly, sometimes daily. Cardiovascular therapy practiced by ordinary Japanese citizens at a cost of $3 to $5 per session. Warm water immersion at 40 to 42 degrees Celsius increases cardiac output by 60 to 70%, dilates peripheral blood vessels, reduces systemic vascular resistance, and improves endothelial function, the flexibility and responsiveness of your artery walls. These are the same cardiovascular adaptations that moderate intensity exercise produces. A 2023 study from the Ehime University School of Medicine followed 30,000 adults over 20 years and found that those who bathed in hot springs 5 or more times per week had a 35% lower risk of cardiovascular death compared to those who bathed once or less. The effect was independent of exercise, diet, smoking, and other confounders. Cardiac rehabilitation in the United States costs $100 to $300 per session. It involves supervised exercise on a treadmill in a clinical setting, usually after a cardiac event. Japan's version is a hot bath in a cedar tub, surrounded by strangers, in a building that's been open for 200 years. The mechanism is identical. The cost is $3. The clinical evidence is 20 years deep, and your cardiologist has probably never mentioned it. 2. They maintain social bonds that reduce mortality risk more than quitting smoking. Moai, the Okinawan tradition of forming small social groups of 5 to 8 people who meet regularly for life. They share meals, they share finances in times of need, they share accountability, they share the invisible medicine that Western healthcare has no billing code for. Belonging. Chronic loneliness increases inflammatory cytokines, elevates cortisol, suppresses immune function, and shortens telomeres. A 2023 meta-analysis from the National Institute of Health found that social isolation increases mortality risk by 26%, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day, and greater than the risk associated with obesity or physical inactivity. Japan's social infrastructure prevents this. Neighborhood associations, temple groups, workplace communities, public bathhouses where strangers become regulars. The architecture of connection is physical, not digital. You don't scroll through a moai. You sit in one. Your doctor can prescribe statins, antihypertensives, antidepressants, and insulin. They cannot prescribe a friend, but the mortality reduction from genuine social connection exceeds the benefit of every medication in their formulary combined. 1. They built a culture where health is the default, not the exception. And that's what your doctor truly doesn't want you to understand. Here's the secret beneath all the secrets. The real reason these habits work isn't that they're Japanese. It's that they're systemic. They work together, compounding daily, creating an environment where disease has no foothold and the body's own repair mechanisms operate at full capacity. Your doctor isn't hiding these habits from you maliciously. They're trapped in a system that was built to treat disease, not prevent it. Medical school dedicates fewer than 25 hours of its 4-year curriculum to nutrition, 0 hours to meal timing, 0 hours to breathwork, 0 hours to thermal therapy, 0 hours to microbial diversity from fermented foods, 0 hours to the immunological effects of forest exposure, 0 hours to the cardiovascular benefits of communal bathing. They're not trained in prevention, they're trained in intervention. By the time you're sitting in their office, the opportunity for prevention has already passed, and the tools they have, pharmaceuticals and procedures, are designed for the stage of disease you've already reached. Japan doesn't have healthier people because it has better doctors. It has healthier people because its culture, its food, its architecture, its social structure, its bathing rituals, its relationship with nature, its meal design, and its philosophy of daily maintenance create a population that rarely needs doctors in the first place. That's what the system doesn't want you to understand. Not because there's a conspiracy, but because the entire economic model of Western healthcare depends on you being sick enough to need it. Every habit on this list reduces your dependence on that model. Every fermented food, every warm bath, every post-meal walk, every cup of green tea, every bowl of miso soup, every moment of silence is an act of quiet independence from a system that profits from your illness and has no financial incentive to teach you how to prevent it. Japan built prevention into the culture. You can build it into your life, one habit at a time, starting today. Your body wants to heal. It's been waiting for permission. These 25 habits are that permission. And when your body changes, and it will change, your doctor will look at your labs and ask what happened. Tell them the truth. You stopped waiting for medicine to save you, and you started living like the healthiest country on earth. That's not a secret they don't want you to know. That's a truth they were never trained to teach, and now you know it anyway.